All right, hi. So this is normally Startup Business Q&A. It's normally live as well. And if you're watching this, then it is pre-recorded on Monday at 1 p.m. London time. So this is episode 63 or 64, I think it is. And I'm not physically here. I've pre-recorded this the night before because I'm in surgery. So right now, as you're watching this, I'm probably unconscious, being cut open and doctors doing stuff to me. Hopefully I'll be okay. So if not, this is the last thing I'll ever go out. How about that? That's weird. But I'm sure it won't be the case. So yeah, I'm just about to get packed for the doctors. For the hospital before I go first thing in the morning. And what I wanted to do is, instead of doing a Q&A, because that's not really going to work as effectively, I wanted to talk about content. And I think that a really valuable thing for the startup space is an awareness of not just that content's important, but how to deliver it in the right way. So I've set 5 rules for you, and there's a bonus at the very end as well, but there's 5 rules around creating content that I really feel business owners, entrepreneurs, and those who are starting their businesses or their enterprises for the first time, really at that very beginning point need to get right. So the first rule, this isn't in any particular order, but this is quite an important one. The first rule is that you got to understand content has to be there for a reason. So what is it? You need to think to yourself, rather than just throwing stuff down, I need to put up some content, I'll just grab a quote somewhere and throw it up. Have a bit more of a calculated approach to it. It's really worth, if this is a really big bit of advice, it's really worth doing 3 posts in a day instead of 8, if those 3 are a little bit more calculated. Write something with some depth. If you're going to put a quote up, fine, but rationalize it, put your opinion on it as well. But think a bit deeper than that. Why am I doing this? What's the reaction that I'm really after from my audience? Is it just vanity metrics? Likes and comments and shares? Because that's okay, right? That's okay. People think that's a bad thing. It's okay to have that in the mix because you want to get people used to or conditioned to liking your stuff and engaging with your stuff. But do you want something deeper? Is it part of a strategy where you're looking to nudge people in the direction of your website or some other kind of conversion? So what's the point here? What's the emotion you're trying to get from the audience? What are you really trying to deliver? What really is it? What's the reason for that piece of content? If you don't have a real good reason, you need to think to yourself, well, why would I put this out then? Because you don't have to be willing to put pieces of content in the bin and say, actually I won't post that, but I actually need to post something like this because it's going to affect me and help me. So a good thing to do is to look at competition, to people you look up to in your space. What are they doing that gets results for them? And also, of course, audit the things that have worked for you in the past as well. But this isn't just about what gets engagement, it's why are you posting that piece of content? What's the need right now? What's the point in it? Where is it going to take that audience? How will you be following up? What's the next step for them? Okay. Second rule after that is to think about posting for the audience itself. A lot of people really don't tune in enough to the specific super niche that they're actually trying to target. So you might have a big following, good for you, but there'll be a hardcore, and you'll really know those people. They're the ones who love every post, they comment on everything, and constantly sending you messages and things like that. People who really love your stuff, make sure your content resonates with them the most, because that's where you get your biggest traction. But in addition to that, think about making your content really stand out by being really great. And one thing I do is, this might be one way of doing it yourself, is rather than just thinking about writing content for my audience, I also think to myself, if in 20 years time or in 50 years time my children or my grandchildren are watching this content, what are they going to think about me? Are they going to, am I going to have grandchildren in the future that go, wow, Grandad Richard was a bloody great guy. Look at the stuff he put out there, and there's some real depth there. That's some really amazing content, and he really did a great job. And so just remember that everything you're doing and putting out there is going to be there unless something weird happens. It's going to be out there. And what would your grandchildren think about you right now? What you're at, you know, when they look at what you're putting out there, and would they be impressed? Would they be proud? That's a good way to look at your content as well. You know, you think, am I doing something that serves a purpose for the audience, but also am I being inspirational to the point that even the people who know and love me, or even don't yet, not even been born yet, are going to look at me and think, wow, that's some really great stuff here. That was a great guy. I wish I'd met him, or something like that. So, you know, that's a really good way of looking at it. You don't have to be profound in everything you do, but it's good to have some sense of process, or that you've put some thought into it, rather than just firing up content all the time, because you tend to find the efficacy drops off a cliff, of course. So there's verse 2 rules. The third one isn't mine, but it's something that if you don't know about, you really should, and it's a saying. That saying is, content is 10%, distribution is 90%. And here's the thing, no matter how great your content is, unless you distribute it, pass it around and let people know about it and get it out there, you're nothing. So right now, at the time of you watching this, right now across the world, there are amazing ideas, products and services all being built in garages, in lofts, wherever they are, and they'll never see the light of day. And they could be game-changing, like world-changing, culture-changing products or services, but they won't get anywhere because the distribution isn't there. There's no good just having content unless it's being shared. So it means if there's an important piece of content, you reach out to that hardcore, the people who really follow you. Hey, I would really appreciate if you just comment on this. Do you mind? Just to get the ball rolling, or, you know, tag them in it and say, you know, I know this is important to you. What do you think about it? Or ask your closer friends to share it, maybe. Get it on your blog, share it across different platforms. You know, the fact that there is a Q&A, for instance, on a Monday, isn't just broadcast when the Facebook notification goes live on the audience's timeline saying Richard Moore is live now. It's posted all over the place. You know, it's on Twitter, for instance, or there's a notification on another platform, another part of Facebook saying that this is about to happen. And it's all that stuff, because otherwise there's great content that doesn't get seen, and that's a tragedy. But more importantly for your business, that's seriously putting you in a place of vulnerability, because unless your content is seen and shared and distributed, well, of course, it's kind of pointless you doing it. And there's no point making great content into thin air unless you focus more of your time and resource on getting it out to the right people. That means, yeah, maybe you should be dabbling in ads. Maybe you should be thinking about, what would it look like if I cross-pollinated here? So maybe my Instagram post, which is a really great post that promotes my webinar, isn't going to look so great on Twitter, but I could tweet about the fact I've just released this thing and people should check it out, you know. So use all that, because distribution is king. It's not just the content that matters, because otherwise you'll be there for an eon, hoping over time that eventually people will start finding you. You can do more than that, and that's distribution. That's essential. Okay. The next thing is something more that a lot of corporates are missing the point on, but also a lot of businesses that just don't have an awareness of what they should be doing on social are falling foul of. And what this is showing you. Now, showing you, I'm talking about here in terms of content, but in terms of specifically social media platforms, it's critical you do it. If I have a bricks and mortar business, or in fact if I have any kind of business, and the Facebook presence, for instance, is just logos, images of products and nothing else, there's no face or personality to that business. Sure, you can be funny, or you can have some quirky images and things like that, but you have to have some kind of human personality. You have to personalize what you're doing. If you don't, then naturally people aren't going to relate to it enough to kind of get traction. And the reason why is we are hardwired as creatures to be able to interact better with people than with objects. We are social creatures, and so you need to have have your face on your Facebook profile, or on your business profile. Have the odd video or the odd picture. If you're scared of doing it, well, you're putting your emotions ahead of the needs of the business. In this age, it's essential that on social media, you are being social. So that means your personal brand is important, but also the fact that there is a face, and ideally charismatic. It doesn't have to be necessarily, but it's a personality or a person that people can relate to that is associated with that business. If you look at all the top brands out there, there's a guy, you had Steve Jobs originally with Apple, you have Bill Gates with Microsoft, for instance, and these people aren't even there anymore, but originally that was the man. You have Richard Branson with Virgin, you have Elon Musk with Tesla. They're not forcing a personal brand, but their face is there. You need that human element. So your social content, it should have you. You've got to be there, and even if it's you in the background talking about your product, fine, but documenting it with you as the person there means that people are going to be able to access this information a lot easier, because we are hardwired to do so in that way. So that's an important way to look at it. The fifth rule is a very important slight tweak that people need to be making with content. You have to be really careful when you brag, okay? Those that brag tend, by brag I mean they show off about how great they are, they tend to be in a very dangerous place unless they do it with great subtlety. A bit tongue-in-cheek or with a bit of a joke is okay, but if you are basically bragging because you're the best, then you need to be doing it because there's a very particular type of audience that you're trying to reach out to, and that's people who respond to that kind of brag. So that's okay as a strategy, but if you brag as a matter of course in your content, you might be headed for a bit of a fall, because no one likes a show off except a very small portion of people who are a particular type of people, not bad or good, but a type of people that like that kind of person to look up to, who is a big braggy show off. But they have to be able to back it up with great results day in, day out. Otherwise, they just look like an idiot who's all talk. So if you're going to brag, never be all talk. It's so important. And a good way to work against this is to, instead of brag, is to show gratitude. Gratitude goes down far better in the tonality of your social content. And with gratitude, you can throw in that you've achieved something fantastic, but by showing gratitude, you're doing it in the right way. So be very careful. You probably know who you are if you're the type to brag loads, and probably 85–90% of those that do get it wrong and they rub people up the wrong way. There's a small portion of those that brag as part of their strategy who are actually really great at it, and it resonates with their audience because that's just who they are, and they've also got the they've got the results to back it up, so that's fine. But gratitude's essential, and I think regardless of who you are, that should feature. So you can't do it too much. Be grateful for your customers, be grateful for your team, be grateful for your opportunities, be grateful for the results, in fact, that even though you've crafted them yourselves, you've managed to achieve. So that's essential. So there are your 5 rules. So just make sure you have those in mind when you're building your content. I wanted to give you a bonus one as well, which isn't magical, but I think it's something worth reiterating whenever this kind of video is made, really, and that's the importance of integrity and making sure you're being authentic, so being you. I'd like to hope that the reason why so many people, I'm so flattered by it, there's the gratitude, there's so many people seem to like what I do is because I really do my best to just be myself. And what I mean by that is there's no pretense that I'm anyone else. And have I been successful and done well for myself? I really have. I'm very proud of that. But I haven't gone out and hired a Ferrari for one day and taken loads of photos with it and pretended that it is mine. I haven't gone and stood next to someone else's Lamborghini and pretended that it's mine. I haven't done Airbnb with a house that isn't mine for a day and pretended that it was, in order to create a kind of perception about results that I don't have. And those of you who've done it, you know who you are, and you might think, well, perception's important for my audience. But the thing is, what I'd ask you to think to yourself is, if you don't have that, if you don't, I'm not saying you have to own a Ferrari, but enough, a perfect example is a guy called Tai Lopez, who is a multimillionaire internet marketer, but he leases his cars, he freely admits that, but at least he can afford to lease a car every single day rather than as a one-off. Because if you can't afford to have the lifestyle you're portraying, then what it's saying is, I'm this guy, when in fact you haven't made it there to be able to, to be able to create that in reality. What that really does is potentially put you in a place of very great irresponsibility, because you're actually suggesting you are someone you're not. And if you are any good at what you're doing in the space you're purporting to be in, then you should authentically be in that kind of level. You have the house, you have the cars, or whatever it is. So the bling, the watches, the Ferraris is a big danger place unless you actually are at that point, because ultimately you get found out that actually you're not all that. So go earn it. It's far better. And a little bit like I mentioned earlier about, your grandchildren looking at you in 50 years time going, wow, what a great guy. That's kind of where you want to be. But more to the point, you shouldn't be doing things for other people anyway. You should do it for yourself. You need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm being myself. If you know you're being fake, it's, how can you be proud of that? And I think, I don't want to go all touchy-feely, but it's a really important point. People's bullshit radar is far more effective than you realise, especially nowadays. We've had enough exposure to it online, we can see it. Not everyone's going to call you on it, but you'll tend to find people view you more cynically. So it's not worth it. And so many times in the past I've had people say, well, people who are close to me saying, why don't you just do that? Why don't you just hire a car or something and pretend to be like a multi-millionaire? And it's like, but I don't want to do that, because that means I'm pretending to be something I'm not. I don't need to, because I've done really well in other things anyway. Plus, the hilarious thing is, if I was $100 million dollar guy, I probably wouldn't be going overboard with the cars anyway, because I don't care about them that much. So that's just me, really. But that aside, it's authenticity is important. I think more practically speaking, being you in the content rather than being too contrived or overthinking and analysing how you should come across is actually the best way to be the best you can. So in these kind of, in these Q&As, for instance, on these recorded videos or the live videos, I'm just getting on with just being normal. So literally what you see is what I'm normally like. When I write, so when I do a lot of articles and things like that, I just write, and I don't kind of overthink how I should be. I don't try and make myself a bit more kind of a higher level than I actually am. I'm just me, and I think that's a better way of doing it, because that's something, this is the important part, that's something that's sustainable. And over time, people will be like, hang on, this guy's not quite who he was, and he's not able to keep that up. And you need to just be you, and that you'll find that there'll always be people who don't really like you, but there will always be people who love what you do, even when you're just yourself. Okay, so that's essential. And I think that you know, as I've said before, if you cured cancer, you'd still have haters, right? So just be yourself, because there'll always be plenty of people who really find that wonderful. I'm going to sign off there. So hopefully those 5 rules and the bonus one are of value to you. It's just a short 20-minute one today. So hopefully I'll see you again very soon. As soon as I possibly can, I'll probably hop on live and let you all know how it's gone. But I'm literally non-stop getting messages from everyone wishing me well for the operation, which is in the morning, I believe, but probably will be happening at the time that you're watching this. So thank you so much. It's been really kind, all of those great messages, and I really hope this is useful. This stuff's so essential. Make sure you heed these words. These rules are what it's all about when it comes to content and social media, and I live by them myself, and it's not done me much harm at all. So you take care, and I will see you very soon. I will speak to you all hopefully the other side of the operation. You take care. Thanks very much. Bye bye.